Why you should collect small paperbacks. They're really awesome. They're really convenient. You can fit them right in your pocket. So in this video, please join us on this journey. We're going to be talking about my entire collection of small paperbacks. And we're also going to be doing a quick book haul. So please stay tuned. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at Andrew Marlowe Artist Official. And also send me an email at andrewmarlowe22@gmail.com. So let's get right into it. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys like the new camera angle. I wanted to try to implement something that would, get my cross in the shot and be able to still sort of film, my face and my gestures and also get the cool background. It's a little bit wonky. It's sort of coming up from the top and I tilted the camera a little bit towards me. Let me know if you like the new angle. If you don't like the new angle, we can try to adjust. I'm going to fix the light a little bit there. Hopefully the lighting's good. So we do have a book haul and I'm going to get into that real soon. But I'm actually not going to include these 3 paperbacks in the initial book haul, even though I did buy these today. But I'm going to save these 3 paperbacks when we talk about the entire collection of small pocket paperbacks. Got a really nice collection going here. I'm also going to rehab for my book buying addiction. But anyway, let's... I'm not really going to rehab for that, but that would be cool if they offered that type of service. This is the collection of new books, so we're going to get right into them. I'm just going to kind of buzz through them. Please let me know in the comments if you guys have read any of these books. Up first, we have this beautiful Penguin edition of Arthur Miller's The Crucible. This is sort of a expose. It's actually a play, but it's sort of an explorational expose on the Salem witch trials, from my understanding, sort of from the perspective of the trials and sort of, what actually took place. And there's some interesting characters in here. There's actually a movie with, I want to say Mel Gibson, but it's probably not Mel Gibson. But if we have any Crucible or Arthur Miller fans out there, please let me know. I'm excited to get our eyes and ears into that. Up next, we have the long-awaited True Grit that my subscribers for a couple of weeks are actually hounding me to get a copy of True Grit, so we finally got this. It looks like an interesting story and an interesting movie. They've made a couple different versions. There's like a John Wayne version, and there's also a new version with that actor that's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. I really like this edition. It's really nice. Charles Portis. Not real familiar with his material, but let me know if you guys are a fan of True Grit. I might try to read this soon because people have been, asking me to read it really strongly. Up next, we have a historical book called A Terrible Glory, Custer and the Little Bighorn, The Last Great Battle of the American West by James Donovan. So this is going to be really nice to add to sort of the Western history, Native American collection. Looking forward to this. Not sure when we'll get to it, but we'll try to get to it at some point. I was actually going to give you guys an update on the reading schedule and sort of a channel update. Now my head's itching because of this hat, but I just really love this hat. Up next, we have something a little bit different. Frederick Bachman, A Man Called Ove. I think it's sort of a play on words. A Man Called Love, but it's just of. And I've heard a lot about Frederick Bachman. A lot of YouTubers talking about him. A lot of women like to read Frederick Bachman for some reason. So let me know if this is kind of like pussy literature or whatever, but I am kind of interested to see what the big rave is about Frederick Bachman. It seems kind of like overly sentimental, sort of feel-good type of literature. But I really like this copy. I really like the print. I want to say this was the movie with Kinko Hanks, Creepy Tom Hanks. Which I'm not a real big fan of him, but the movie was actually pretty good. But maybe this is not the same book that movie was based on. But if we have any Frederick Bachman followers out there, fans, please let me know. He has a pretty large trajectory of literature out there now, and pretty much everybody's been mentioning him. So let's see what the big rave is. Up next, we have this really cool book called The Sistine Secrets, Michelangelo's Forbidden Messages in the Heart of the Vatican. So this is sort of like an esoteric exploration of the what's the painting called, the Sistine Chapel, the big cycle on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, which I've reviewed in a lot of my art history courses. Most of you guys are pretty familiar with a lot of the imagery from the Sistine Chapel, but this sort of takes a more esoteric approach in the scholarship and the literature, sort of to, it's not literature, but it probably draws on some literature. But I really love the Sistine ceiling. I think Michelangelo is absolutely brilliant. And this actually talks a lot about sort of what his esoteric influences were, if there were any. The Kabbalah is actually involved in potentially influencing Michelangelo, as well as, you know, Christian and pagan influences alike, and different forms of symbology, and sort of how he took different religions and different sort of esoteric ideas and kind of culminated them all together. This is a really beautiful copy. So let me know if we have any this is actually really cool. I got to show you guys the cover of this, because it's actually a huge poster. Look at that. This is insane. Like, I can't even get the whole thing on camera, but it's like an exact, complete replica diagram of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Like, that is so cool. Like, that is just, I almost want to hang that up, you know what I mean? So I am going to be spending some, it's a little bit blurry, but I'm going to spend some time kind of reading that, or taking a closer look at it, but it is kind of blurry, so I probably won't actually hang it up. Now, I don't want to irritate you guys with the sound of trying to fold this back up, but I'll do that after the video's over, because I can't figure out how to fold it back up right now. Up next, last week we talked about this Marilyn Monroe book that I have right here, if I can reach it, called Bombshell, and I actually found a really other interesting book that dovetails really nicely with that, called The Maryland Scandal. It's a little bit older. This is from like maybe the 70s or the 80s or maybe early 90s or something like that. Beautiful hardcover edition. And this is written by a journalist slash writer, I guess, called Sandra Chevy, who was sort of in touch and interviewed a lot of the people that were actually part of Marilyn Monroe's circle. And it does delve into some of the mysterious things about her life as well as her death. It's got some beautiful photographs in here of Marilyn Monroe. I'll try to see if I can find some. Just really great stuff. Yeah, most of it, you know, just really beautiful book all in all. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting my eyes and ears into the Maryland Scandal. Beautiful hardcover edition. You know, this is why you got to kind of haunt your used bookstores, because you just never know what you're going to run into. They were having a charity sale today, and I actually had a bunch of store credit, not because I was returning books, but this random guy that shops at the place that I work, he, you know, he's always coming up and talking to me and asking me about my books and all this stuff. So make a long story short, he gave me some of his store credit for free. He gave me like $100 of his store credit, which I was just totally blown away. So I was able to buy some books. I wasn't really buying them and have to pay a penny. Not that I mind buying books, but I got most of these free over the last couple of weeks because there's some really cool people out there, some really generous people, and the guy just noticed that I'm a huge reader, and, you know, he always makes fun of my sticky notes. He's like, "You're not getting Alzheimer's, are you?" You know, because I have sticky notes just flying out of my books like crazy. So I'm going to put this back. Beautiful icon that my brother got me from Greece, Orthodox icon, alongside this Orthodox cross. Hope you guys will enjoy this. This is just beautiful. We might make a separate video on my other vlog channel about my icons and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the book haul. So now we're going to be getting into the topic of the small pocket paperbacks, which I really, really love. I've got quite a few of them here to get through. And just a disclaimer, I've shown most of these on my recent book hauls, or you know, book hauls that are on this channel. But most of you guys aren't going to really remember them, but I'm just going to talk a little bit briefly about the editions, and during that time we'll sort of talk why I like to collect these. And we'll start with the 3 new ones that I got, and I just love how the small pocket paperbacks, the tiny paperbacks, just fit perfectly well together. And there's something to be said for these. Before we get into the haul, we'll talk a little bit about the, you know, give or take, some of them are a little bit shorter than others, you know, like these don't perfectly match up, and they can get quite small and quite compact, and you know, you can fit, as long as the book is not too thick, you can fit them right in your pocket. And they're really great for marginalia and for, you know, writing things down in the text. Although they are small, They're good for marking up because they're cheap, and they're really good for giving to people. You know, you can give these to people as, you know, you can loan these to people or just give them as gifts, you know, because they're not particularly worth anything. But they're worth something to me because they're just so beautiful and they're so cheap. You know, some of these at the used bookstores go for like $1 sometimes. So up first and foremost, I got this really small sort of vintage paperback copy. This edition came out in 1964, it looks like, but this is like sort of an old paperback of As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. This is not obviously the original pressing of As I Lay Dying. But it was really cool to find this old paperback. And this is a good way to sort of find entry novels, you know, because you're not spending a lot of money on these used paperbacks. Even if they're brand new, you're not spending that much. But they don't even sell paperbacks at most of the grocery stores anymore because nobody's reading, unfortunately. And they're sort of phasing out magazines as well, you know, because everything's going digital. But so there's something to be said for these small paperbacks, and it's just a great way to kind of try out different authors. Like, you're just sampling, and that's kind of what you're doing with tiny paperbacks, small paperbacks, is you're basically just kind of sampling. You know, it's a great way just to explore a lot of different authors in sort of a quick, convenient sort of time frame, and it's inexpensive as well. Up next, this is one of the new ones. We have The 13th Warrior, formerly known as Eaters of the Dead. I would love to find a vintage copy of Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton does not need any introduction. If you don't know who Michael Crichton is, then, you know, that's a conversation for another video, but everybody knows Jurassic Park and all that stuff. So this is sort of the retitled, pressed version of Eaters of the Dead. As you can see there, this is the original sort of esoteric historical action medieval history novel about the Arabs and the Vikings and the strange you know, culture of cavemen, sort of per se, ancient men living in caves that were belaboring the community back then, terrorizing sort of the local community. And it basically revolves around this death cult. If you guys have ever seen The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, just a brilliant film, and I'm really excited to read the book. And we were talking about that the other day. Like, most great movies, 9 times out of 10, they're all previously great novels. Now, it's possible that sometimes the movie is a little bit better, a little more concise. Maybe the storytelling is a little bit better in the movie, but you know, if you're a fan of a movie, if you're a big movie buff, you should really go back to the original source, which in most cases is the book or the play or the screenplay. Obviously, up next we have Revolutionary Road, which I forgot was a book, and that's what I love about small paperbacks, is that they definitely cater to books that became movies. Like, I would say half of these are all movie paperbacks, but they're like the original novels. Not the original pressings, but they're the original stories, the original novels that these great movies were written about. Now, this movie was starring, if you guys don't recognize it, it's Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, this movie did not do nearly as well as Titanic did, unfortunately. And it's not by any means a great movie, but it's a pretty good story told, good acting. It's the total opposite of Titanic, but this is like a brand new copy, and it smells great, and I love it. And I'm interested to sort of read this novel just to see what it's all like, you know, see what it's all about, see how it compares to the film. And that's another way we can kind of expand this channel too, is talk about books that were made into movies. You know, this is not going to be a film channel. It's going to stay based in literature, but there's so many books that became movies or that were movies or whatever. Up next, we have The Silence of the Lambs. I talked about this a couple days ago. Not going to talk too much about this, but again, a great addition to the movie paperback collection. You know, we've got already 3 here. You know, so this is a great way just to kind of keep track of the movies that you like, you know, and you can kind of knock these off of your bucket list and say, oh, I read the book of that, one of my favorite movies as well. So that's cool. Let's talk about another movie one. We have Dancing with Wolves. Not going to talk too much about this because we did mention this honorably in our last book haul. But just, again, you know, another great movie that is potentially a great novel as well. And these small paperbacks are usually, you know, the books tend to be kind of small, not all of them. They tend to be on the short side. This one's only like 310 pages. So how cool is that? You know, we've got already 4. I think I got some more in the collection too, but this is just really cool to have, you know, novels that later became movies. Up next, we have Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and I actually haven't physically read any of these small paperbacks yet, but I'm going to try to kind of get working into them. It's just sort of another esoteric offshoot of my book collection. You know, I've got the really nice hardcovers, and then I've got sort of the Penguin classics, and then we've got the Oxford classics, and then we've got, like, you know, sort of the everything in between, and then on the top shelf we keep the small paperbacks. We might actually rearrange the small paperbacks because my collection is growing. Up next, we have this book that I haven't read yet called Inside the CIA, which looks pretty interesting. I'm not sure how legitimate it is, by Ronald Kessler. You know, could be not that great of a book, but it's kind of ended up in my collection from a used bookstore or something. So I'm interested to kind of see what tales are involved in Inside the CIA. Up next, we have Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. I'm looking forward to, pardon my French, literally, I'm looking forward to getting into this. And this is a great way to explore really lengthy novels. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. This one is a whopping, I don't even know, almost 2,000 pages. About 50 pages shy of 2,000 pages. So, you know, I'd be interested to read a really epic novel. Now, having said that, the tiny paperbacks are not always the most comfortable because they don't leave much room in the marginalia. You usually always have to split the spine of a tiny paperback, and this one's just in beautiful condition. It's like never been touched. This is an old Signet classic, which I really like, and that's something you can start curating for yourself too in your book collection. Is within the small paperbacks or whatever genre of collecting you're kind of working on, you can look out for the logo and the label of certain companies that you really like their product, you know. And I really like the Signet classics. We've got a bunch of Signet classics in here. So like I said, very small print, unfortunately, usually for these small paperbacks, as well as not much room for annotations or marginalia, and not much room to really open the book without splitting the spine. But that's why they're cheap. You know, you don't have to worry about splitting them or really marking them up. There's not really much room to write at all, but you can highlight quite a bit easily in these. So this is really cool to have in the collection. I'm going to try to knock out some Victor Hugo at some point soon. Not sure when. Up next, we have The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I might actually cram this in for the Halloween live stream that we're doing. I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow, maybe in my next video. This is another Signet classic. So, you know, this is really small. You could, you know, take this to work with you and finish it in less than a week or maybe a couple of days. I really love the artwork and the font style on these small paperbacks as well. Just really cool to have such a diverse collection of books. Up next, we have a couple small paperbacks of Edgar Allan Poe. Got the complete poetry of Edgar Allan Poe as well as the other tales. So this is pretty much like a complete, not 100% complete probably, but 50% complete anthology of Edgar Allan Poe stories. I do like Edgar Allan Poe. Sometimes he frustrates me. I try to get my brother to read Edgar Allan Poe, and my brother could just not make any sense of it. But I do plan on doing an Edgar Allan Poe live stream at some point, or topical video. These are also Signet classics. Really, really cool to have these. Up next, we have another Signet classic, Antony and Cleopatra, rather. Haven't read this Shakespeare yet. This is a great way to get into Shakespeare too, is to get editions in small, cheap paperbacks. That way, you know, if you end up not liking Shakespeare all that much, you know, you only spent a few bucks on a paperback. Up next, we have Julius Caesar. This is not Signet, but this is a Folger Library edition. And what's cool about this, I'll show you. I think it's actually over there. I think I have another Signet edition here. So this is a bigger version of the same brand. This is Romeo and Juliet. This is not Signet, I'm sorry. This is Folger Shakespeare Library. But that's what's really cool, is different companies, they have different sizes of their books that they press. You know, like those would look really nice in the collection, even though they're different sizes, but because they're in the same pressing, you know, the same edition, the same brand, or the same company, they look really cool together. So that's just something else to kind of look out for. I'll put this back later. Up next we have another. This is Tor. They make this is the brand name Tor. They actually make really cool paperbacks as well. This is White Fang by Jack London. This is one of the coolest freaking covers I've ever seen in my life. Looks like a werewolf or something. Just awesome. Jack London definitely has his critics, but I'm gonna try to maybe bang out White Fang this winter. It seems like a cool book to read in the winter. So we're going to check up on that later. I'm going to try to read this for Christmas. Another Signet edition of Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. I haven't read any Charles Dickens yet, but that's going to change. And this is good that we made this video because this reminds me to put this back, leave this out so I can remember to read it for the, I guess it would be the winter reading list. We still got 3 months. I could probably knock this book out in a week or two. So if you have any Dickens fans, let me know. I'm inspired to read more Charles Dickens. Just haven't really gotten into him yet. Up next, we have The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This is a Barnes & Noble's classic small paperback. You guys know I love the high quality Barnes & Noble's classics up here, but we also have cheap paperbacks that you can acquire as well. That's the great thing about just collecting books and, you know, going to used bookstores, shopping online as well. You find really cool stuff. This is a beautiful, I don't know what brand this is. I'd have to do some research, but it looks like it's called BB. So I'm not sure what that stands for, but this is a vintage copy of The Hobbit. How cool is this? I actually have another copy of The Hobbit as well, but this is a really cool old school paperback. This is just stuff you can't really find anymore. You know, you might not even be able to find this on Amazon. You might be able to find it on, you know, like a used book website or something like that. But there's just so many treasures. It's like Kurt Cobain said, you know, whenever you go to a thrift store or something, there's just so many treasures. And this one's quite old and quite worn. You know, the pages are getting yellowed. But just really brilliant. Up next, we have James Herriot's All Creatures, Great and Small. This is Bantam Books. It's like a little rooster logo there, Bantam Books. And yeah, this is based on the TV show All Creatures Great and Small is based on James Herriot's novel series about his life as a veterinarian. Super cool. So we got a few more here. We have Dontkeyote by Cervantes, as you guys know. This is a beautiful copy. This is probably not the best translation. This is translated by, I forgot who translated this one. It's in here somewhere. Translated by Tobias Smollett. So it's one of the more decent translations, but I've heard there's some even better translations. But I might just get my feet wet in the water with Dontkeyote. And I'm trying to figure out, I have another book in this series, and I've actually forgotten it. Let me go grab it. It's right over here. I actually have 2 tiny paperbacks right here that I almost forgot. So thank God we looked over there. We'll talk about these in a minute. But this goes really nicely with Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions. Look at that. That's something else as a book collector you'll start to notice when you're shopping at the used bookstores or wherever. You'll notice what the editions and the pressings look like. So anyway, that's Dontkeyote by Cervantes. And then we have Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions. We actually have a whole analysis of this / review. You guys can check that out. This one's got some annotations in it and stuff like that. So you guys can check that out, but it's cool to have stuff that goes in the same sort of edition, the same collection. How can we forget Somewhere in Time? It was on my stack of books for the books that we've read in 2022 or 2023. I'm sorry. So that's going to be in the video coming up at the end of this year about all the books that we read. We actually have a full esoteric analysis of Richard Matheson's Somewhere in Time. So please go check that out. This is another tour edition. So super great, super awesome. We also have the Portable Jung. This is an old school Penguin paperback. So I haven't really read much psychoanalysis, you know, philosophy recently, but I do plan on getting into some Carl Jung at some point just to kind of see what he's all about. Up next, we have this beautiful Signet edition of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Super excited to kind of delve into the more esoteric, how do I say, yeah, esoteric elements of Lewis Carroll. You know, he was quite the weirdo. That's putting it lightly. This has some really beautiful illustrations in it. Just really, really great stuff there. Or a really cheap paperback, so that's great to have. Again, we have another movie edition in the Tor brand, The Man in the Iron Mask by Alexandre Dumas, I should say. Wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, which is going to be, I'll tell you more about that later, but I'm really excited to read Man in the Iron Mask. And like I said, you know, it's really cool. How many different movie books do we have here? Quite a few. You know, it's almost like having a movie collection in literature. You know, it's just really, really cool. Two more here. We got Lord of the Flies by William Golding. You guys probably remember you were forced to read this in grammar school or something. I never actually read it, I don't think. Maybe I was supposed to, but I'm going to try to unpack this at some point and read it. And we'll do an analysis of it. I'm sure it's got some esoteric, you know, stuff we could touch upon probably. And also we have Allan Watts, Nature and the Man and Woman. We talked a little bit about this a couple of months ago in the book haul. Allan Watts is a little bit of a, you know, a double-edged sword as far as his sort of esoteric Asian influence philosophy and stuff, but we'll try to unpack Allan Watts at some point. So that's pretty much it for the small paperback collection, but I just wanted to talk about the value of collecting the small paperbacks and try to inspire you guys to collect them for their beautiful cover art, as well as, you know, how they relate to the movies that you like and all the variety that you get with small paperbacks. We actually left a few out in the collection, you know, like this. This is another movie paperback, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. This is a brand new copy. So I just can't talk enough about the small paperbacks, and I'm forgetting several here. Yeah, there's a few that I've actually forgotten, but we'll kind of close it out with The Web and the Rock by Thomas Wolfe. This is one of my most prized possessions. As you guys know, I read the more updated edition of The Web and the Rock, but this is a pretty vintage copy. It's got this beautiful silhouette right there that I just noticed. So it's just, that's the beauty of small paperbacks, is that, you know, they're like, you can find old editions that are still in really, really nice condition, and they kind of bring you back to the past, to the old days, you know. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon, and I do have some stuff planned for the next couple of weeks, so please stay tuned for that, and you guys keep on reading.